It's pretty amazing how much laws shape our lives here in Singapore. And wow, you sent over some really great materials digging into how they're actually made and applied.
Hmm.
It definitely makes you think about the mechanics of it all.
It really does. And it shows you're curious. We've got quite a mix here. Academic articles on court structure, the whole history, how the legal system grew,
Yeah, I saw that.
analyses of judicial precedent, which is super important, and excerpts on the actual institutions and, well, where the laws come from. It's a lot, but fascinating stuff.
Absolutely. Okay, so our mission for this deep dive, I guess, is to navigate all this information. We want to really get a handle on the sort of the structure and the history of Singapore's legal system,
Mm.
focusing on the key insights, right? Without getting totally lost in every tiny detail.
Exactly, like getting the essential blueprint, as you said. It's about understanding the core framework.
So where do we start? It feels like such a huge topic.
Well, I think the best place to start is right at the foundation. What is Singapore law actually built on? And the answer is primarily the common law tradition.
Ah, common law.
Yeah, inherited from England. The big moment, the one usually cited, is the Second Charter of Justice back in 1826. That's seen as the key point of reception.
Okay, common law. We hear that term a lot. But what does it actually mean for someone maybe not steeped in legal jargon?
Right. So think of it this way. It's not law written down exhaustively in books of statutes passed by Parliament necessarily. It's more organic. It's law that develops through judges' decisions in actual court cases.
So judges are making law as they go.
In a way, yes. It's incremental. Each decision on a specific set of facts can set a precedent, a kind of guideline for future cases that are similar, like forging a path by walking it repeatedly.
Okay, that makes sense. Judges shaping the law. Wait, Lou, Singapore does have a parliament, and they pass laws, right? Acts of parliament.
Absolutely. And that's the other crucial piece. Those are called statutory laws. They are the written laws formally passed by Parliament.
So how do they fit with the judge-made common law?
They work together. Judges must apply the statutes that Parliament passes, and they have to interpret them based on what Parliament intended. So you have common law evolving through cases and statutory law laid down by the legislature. They're like the two main pillars.
Got it. Twin pillars. Common law and statutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, who are the main players, the institutions that make this whole system work within Singapore's government?
Well, Singapore has a parliamentary system modeled on the Westminster system from the UK. So you have the basic separation of powers, broadly speaking. There's the executive, which, runs the government day to day and implements laws.
Like the cabinet and ministers.
Exactly. Then there's the legislature, that's Parliament. Their job is making the laws, the statutes we just talked about. And then the judiciary, the courts, who interpret and apply both the common law and the statutes. The legal system is really how these three branches interact when it comes to law.
And the cabinet's role is pretty significant then, beyond just policy.
Oh, definitely. The cabinet, headed by the prime minister, sets the overall direction for the government. And crucially, the PM advises the president on appointing key figures like the Chief Justice, other Supreme Court judges, and also the Attorney General. So they have a big influence on the top judicial posts.
Right, the attorney general. We often think of them as the public prosecutor handling criminal cases.
That's a huge part of their role, yes. The AG is the public prosecutor and has the sole power to decide whether to start, continue, or stop criminal proceedings. That's constitutionally significant discretion.
But they do more than just prosecute.
Yes. The AG is also the government's principal legal advisor. So the Attorney General's chambers, the AGC, advises on law reform, helps draft legislation. It's a very broad legal role at the heart of government.
In Parliament, just to round it out, is where the statutes come from.
Precisely. The legislature, they create the written laws that judges then have to apply.
Okay, foundation sorted. Common law, statutes, branches of government, executive, legislature, judiciary.
So when someone actually has a legal issue, a dispute, or a crime is prosecuted, where does it happen? What do the courts look like?
It's a hierarchy. Think of a pyramid. At the very top, you have the superior courts. The absolute highest is the Court of Appeal.
Final stop.
Final stop. There's no appeal beyond the Court of Appeal. That signifies Singapore's ultimate judicial authority rests right here.
And just below that, you have the High Court. Now, the High Court itself has two main parts. There's the Appellate Division, which hears appeals in civil cases from the General Division, and then there's the General Division itself.
Okay.
And the General Division is interesting because it's become quite specialized. They have specific lists for complex commercial cases like the Singapore International Commercial Court or SICC for big cross-border disputes.
I've heard of the SICC.
Yeah, and lists for things like building and construction law, finance, shipping, even intellectual property and defamation. It allows for judges with specific expertise to handle those cases efficiently.
Makes sense. Is family law handled there too?
There is a family division within the High Court, yes, but it's part of a wider setup called the Family Justice Courts.
Right. Okay.
That system includes the High Court's family division, but also the family courts, which handle a lot of the day-to-day family matters, divorces, custody maintenance, and also the youth courts, dealing specifically with young offenders.
And didn't the materials mention the Sharia court as well?
Yes, that's distinct but important. The Sharia court handles specific Muslim personal law matters, mainly relating to marriage and divorce under the administration of Muslim Law Act. It functions alongside the civil courts.
It sounds very organized.
Hmm.
But I remember reading something quite striking, that most cases, the vast majority, aren't handled by these superior courts at all.
That's absolutely right, and it's a critical point. The courts that handle the bulk of the work, over 90% of the entire judiciary's caseload, are the state courts.
Wow, 90%.
Yeah. They used to be called the subordinate courts. They are the workhorses. They deal with the majority of criminal cases, civil claims up to a certain value, traffic offenses, basically the everyday justice system for most people.
That really puts this structure into perspective. It's not just about the very top courts.
Not at all. The state courts are fundamental to the system's operation.
Okay, so we have this structure now, but how did it get this way? The history bits in the materials were fascinating. It wasn't always so formal, was it?
Not even close. In the very early days after Raffles founded Singapore, justice was quite pragmatic, ad hoc, really. The residents, sometimes helped by magistrates, would sort of deal with crimes and disputes as they came up.
And local leaders were involved too?
Yeah, for disputes involving the local Malay population, the Sultan and the Temenggung played a role. It was very informal, driven by the needs of a small, new settlement.
Then came that second Charter of Justice in 1826. You mentioned it earlier. That sounds like a big deal.
It was meant to be. It formally established a proper court, the Court of Judicature of Prince of Wales Island, Singapore, and Malacca. The idea was to bring in the English legal system properly.
It sounds like there's a but.
Well, the reality on the ground didn't change overnight. There was a serious lack of resources. Not enough judges, basically. The first judge, the recorder, was based in Penang and apparently wasn't too keen on traveling down to Singapore or Malacca.
Seriously, so the structure was there on paper, but not really in practice.
For a while, yes. And lawmaking power was actually held way over in India by the Governor General and Council, quite remote. Plus, the local governor had a lot of power, could even overrule court decisions initially. It took time for things to bed down.
What changed things then?
A major shift was Singapore becoming more important commercially. That led to the Straits Settlements being transferred from the India office to the Colonial Office in London in 1867.
Direct colonial rule.
Effectively, yes, and that brought significant changes. A legislative council was set up in Singapore, so laws could be made locally for the first time, an executive council too, and the courts were properly restructured. The Recorder of Singapore became the Chief Justice of the Street Settlements. These were the direct ancestors of the day's courts.
Okay, so that sets the stage. Then fast forward to independence. How did that massive change affect the legal system?
Again, pragmatism was key right after independence in 1965. They had to quickly put essential legal structures in place. Interestingly, Singapore's judiciary actually remained part of the Malaysian structure until 1969.
Really? That long after separation?
Yes. The focus was really on urgent economic and social issues. Even the Constitution was initially a composite of different documents. They were building the ship while sailing it, so to speak.
Makes sense. So a fully independent Singapore judiciary from 1969. But wasn't there still a link to London, the Privy Council?
Yes. For quite a while after 1969, you could still take a final appeal from Singapore's highest court to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council in London.
Why keep that link after independence? It seems a bit strange.
Well, initially, there might have been a sense of continuity. and perhaps a perception that the Privy Council offered a sort of gold standard of judicial expertise. Maybe good for international confidence, attracting investment, that sort of thing.
But Singapore eventually cut that tie, right? Why that change?
Several things. There was a growing sense of national identity and judicial self-sufficiency. But a specific trigger, often cited, was a case in the late 1980s involving political sensitivities, where the Privy Council overturned a Singapore court decision, partly